Okay, this is the City of Gardner Board of Health meeting. It is Monday, October 28th, 2024, and the time is 4:38. The meeting is called to order. First item on the agenda is review and approve the minutes from August 19th, which I think we discussed, and there was going to be a correction to them. I remember correctly.
Yeah, I don't remember what the correction was, though.
I think it was just clarifying some things from
I think that was,
this paragraph.
yeah, I think those were the minutes where things were kind of jumbled together a little bit, maybe.
Yeah.
And we
so-
broke things down a little bit more into categories. Because I don't see anything.
Randy did go through this and fix whatever we had mentioned.
Right. So, we can vote up. Yay!
Howdy.
Just in time. We just started. Give me a second to sit down.
Oh, was it, the meeting from September said that something from July was reviewed and will be corrected for October.
Well,
Was there an August?
yes, there's we were on the August 19th minutes. I believe we Brandy had to go and correct, we asked Brandy to correct something on them. A lot of it was kind of jumbled together and not really clear.
Right.
But was there something in July that we were supposed to correct for October's meeting? This is the October meeting. So the minutes in September say we reviewed July and had to correct something for
Oh,
this meeting.
in September, yes, that's probably an error when we get to those.
That is an error.
But,
Could be August was reviewed and will be corrected for October's meeting.
right. So right now with the minutes for August 19th, we don't have that down there that they were going to be reviewed and corrected and reviewed again, but they are, these are the minutes.
Okay.
We haven't signed them yet, approved them and signed them.
Okay, so I can make a motion to approve the August minutes.
Right.
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye. So then the entry on the September minutes just needs to be changed to,
We will fix
The next agenda is minutes from the meeting for September 23rd. So, yes, that statement,
Should be August 19th,
right, right. These, instead of July 22nd, it should be August 19th. The other question I had was, when we were going to adjourn the meeting and go into executive session, and we should probably, it should state that at the 5:05, that we were moved into executive session, and had voted to adjourn once executive session was ended. And we can state that executive session was to discuss staffing concerns. Was there anything else in the minutes that anybody had any discussions on?
I don't have anything else.
the minutes for
September
23rd with those corrections.
with the correction of the date, yep, and then the
Executive.
executive as well, and we need a separate motion for that one. Or just-
Well, to add that, yeah.
So are we just gonna make the changes and then approve them at the next meeting, or?
That's what I
Right,
would say.
right.
Okay.
So we'll approve them at the next meeting if everyone's in favor of that.
Mhm.
Okay. The next meeting minutes is the executive session minutes for September 23rd, 2024. I think these are written okay.
Yeah.
Motion to approve that.
Okay.
I
And,
made the motions, yeah.
And-
Did you make one?
yeah, you second.
You take a turn.
All in favor?
Second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so these minutes we can sign. And these we will put aside for corrections. Okay, next item on the agenda is Health Department update, starting with 827 Green Street.
Right, so at 827 Green Street, the soil absorption system, the fields, all the components got, they dug everything out back down to natural soil, and then replaced all of the components with a new field that is sized slightly larger, as well as with some different venting components, a different layout, a different size vent, because that was one of the reasons they felt it had failed last time. So I did an inspection when they did the bed bottom, I did an inspection when they got all the new components in place. So now they decided to put the pump on a separate circuit, just because it would be safer and better off if something happens again. So I'm just waiting for that second circuit to be installed so that I can make sure the pump alarms and all the pump floats work properly. So I have to do that and to check that and just make sure that it's been covered properly before I can sign off completely.
So
It's
with it,
mostly in place, they're actually able to use it now, it's just I need to check that the alarms work as soon as they update that circuit.
so with the way they built it, you said they dug out everything, and that, so it's not on a mound? Because it was on a mound,
Yeah,
it's still on a
It's
mound?
still in a mound, they
Okay.
just dug everything out right where the piping was
Okay.
and where the breakout areas were from that, and replaced that with new sand.
Well, that's good. Okay. Landfill erosion,
So we had the bid invitation meeting was last Thursday, the 24th. We had a lot of people show up, it was really well attended, so that will close next week on the 6th. And then we'll take a look and hopefully we'll have some bids to look at and be able to lay out some time frames for getting started on that. I also have currently just one quote for the monitoring well replacement project, so I need to get at least 2 more quotes before I can move ahead with getting those re-drilled and redug.
Michael, will you do those over the winter, and then we'll have to weather?
I think it's just very weather dependent, like if it's a nice mild winter or we get some kind of warm up in January, February, but
They
it might have to
might possibly
wait
get
until.
partially started and then
Yeah.
have to put it on hold.
Yeah, so the plan is just to get those redone as soon as possible, but.
In the meantime, in the interim, I know we're gonna discuss it further, but in the interim, is there anything that can be as a temporary fix for, that, those are just the monitoring wells, so it's really,
Yeah,
yeah.
so there's really,
It's the erosion control issues that we want addressed.
both. yeah.
Right, I know, but I mean, as a temporary, if they can't,
Oh,
because of the
yeah.
winter, is there any temporary type fix that can be done in the interim if they can't because of the weather? Do anything?
Not a whole lot they could probably do. I'm hoping that we can at least get one letdown channel started this year. And,
That's
or
not a quick
this-
thing, I don't even have a time frame
Yeah.
yet, but I can't imagine, it's like, oh yeah, it'll be a week to get this one done, I mean, it must be longer than that, right?
Yeah, I was really hoping that all of this would have been done before, but it just got dragged out. So it's looking like it might be a springtime project at this point, but it's just all weather dependent.
And in the interim, I guess, you know, is the monitoring wells are measuring groundwater, not surface water. The erosion is causing whatever to run off into surface water runoff, or both, ground and surface?
Well, the erosion's basically just, it is probably allowing more water to soak straight down. And then it's also not properly diverting the water that
Right.
is flowing off in a way because of all the sediment that's come out. That's kind of blocking the bottoms of the channels.
So in a temporary fix, would it even be helpful to just put like that, what do you call those, hay bale, not hay bales, but that stuff that they wrap all up now, it's not actually hay bales, they wrap it all
Yeah,
up.
forget what that's called. I was just looking at some of that this morning.
Yeah, would it be
Different sites.
worthwhile to at least try to, not knowing where run off that we're monitoring is coming from, would it be worthwhile to look at that?
I would have to ask, I can definitely
Okay.
check on it.
Well, it's encouraging we've got a bunch of bids anyway.
Yeah, we had a full sign-in sheets. I think it was over 10 different people showed up for that, so.
So, for the record, as was posted on October 15th, the board members, as well as the health director, Micah, and assistant director, Angela, and thank you, Mr. Russo, for also joining us, who is you are a resident, which has land abutting. And we did take a tour through the landfill site to see exactly where the monitoring wells were and all the erosion that we're talking. So the next item on the agenda is questions and comments from the on-site landfill meeting. So just wanted to preface that.
I'll read off these questions and then my answers as we go.
Which your questions were very good. I have a list of them on the other page here, but they were all pretty similar, and I think we all probably were asking similar questions. So I'll let you go.
All right, so the first question was, what was the first point in time when 1,4-dioxane testing should have been done at the 0.03 micrograms per liter level versus the 250 level, using EPA method 8270? And the second part of the question is, should this have been done years ago? So we now have a history of test results at the 0.03 microgram per liter level. So I attached one letter that I dug up in May of 2010 from Brown requesting to test some wells at the .03 level, which would have been, let's see, wells MW96R and MW13D were the only two wells that they wanted to keep sampling at the 0.03 micrograms per liter level. And then they requested that everything else be tested at the detection limit of 500 micrograms per liter. So the DEP changed the requirement, I believe, in May of 2006. The testing results I was able to find looked like they were testing at the 0.03 level up until 2010, when they requested to only test those two wells at that level and everything else at a higher level. And then it looks like somewhere in 2016 or 2017, that well MW96R was damaged. It was one of the damaged ones. So they stopped, they weren't able to test that. And then after that, it looks like from 2017 on, everything was tested at the same detection limit, which was 250 micrograms per liter. So it looks like
not at the lower.
they were testing it at the lower level up until about 2010, when one of our prior consulting firms requested that some of the levels be raised and only kept the same at those two wells. So they started testing at the higher detection limit after that. And then one of the wells got damaged and could no longer be sampled or tested at that lower limit.
So those are the three wells that we saw, where the one was damaged? 'Cause-
Yes, yep.
So those three wells, they were one not being tested, but the other two were being tested at the lower exceedance levels?
Yes. Yep.
Not the higher exceedance levels. They were being tested at the right levels.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it was being tested at the drinking water level,
Okay.
basically. So one of those wells, and then the other well is actually not in that location. It is over by that corner where you kind of make the turn around the landfill.
Is that the, so they're listed as MW96R, that was high in 2010, and MW13D.
Yep, that's the
So
one that
those-
actually is not in that location, and I don't know why they stopped sampling or testing that at the low concentration limits.
When they were already high.
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Well, okay, so these levels that they have, these wells, these are at the lower, the current levels
Yep.
exceeded, so they're,
Drinking.
and they're,
water.
but then they stopped testing them?
They stopped testing them because one was, well, they made this request to test at a higher level, and it was based on, it kind of says in the letter why they were
Right.
requesting it. I think it was just based on historical results.
So, and then none of those areas are the pond,
Those are all called SW, so surface water.
of surface water, okay. So they've always been testing under levels. I mean, they've not exceeded.
They have exceeded, they haven't had exceedances, and it has tested positive. SW4 is the one that most recently had a dioxide result in it.
But that was from what you can find in all your
Yes.
records? That was the first time that it was tested with an exceedance at
Um,
the correct levels?
I would have to dig more into that, so this has been kind of a mess of things being filed everywhere or not filed at all. So I have the environmental annual reports from starting around 2005. I'm missing a few years in between, like 2013 and 2016 that I can't find.
And is this the same people that we work with?
I think we worked with them up until about 2012, and then they decided to cancel the contract, and I think that's when CEC started taking over. And then CEC we were doing the testing at the drinking water levels on those two wells up until they got damaged, and then was no longer able to, we were no longer able to sample that.
Now, I'm sorry, just one more question about that. So do the results, does DEP have a whole list of all the results, or?
They do get copies of everything, so I don't know what they have exactly.
I wonder if they have anything more organized as far as, not that you're not organized, I don't mean that. I mean,
It's not
like,
organized for sure.
but I mean, I wonder if they have like a whole table of results.
I can definitely ask them for what they have. And I have these, I'll send you an email that might be a little more clear than me trying to explain it, so I do have them all written out for each question. I can send that
All right, thank you.
back to you.
Appreciate that.
And,
So CEC took over in 2012, and they were doing some testing at the 250 level and some testing at the .03 level, which is the...
Correct, yeah, up until the time when the 96 par got damaged. And then it looks like from 2017 on, everything was being tested at the 250 microgram per liter detection limit.
And only those wells around the damaged one, 96R and 96S, were required to be at the lower .03. The other wells in the whole system, because there's quite a few wells there, they were allowed to be at a higher level?
That's how it appears right now, so I'm still pulling out files and still piecing it together. But it seems like that kind of is the case.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand why they even wanted to change the testing in dropping some of the wells, but I'm sure they had a reason for it.
Is the procedure much different from the two different tests? I mean, is one more expensive? It seemed like they were focusing on the two that were the most likely suspects to test for the...
Yeah, I don't know exactly how the procedure differs, but it's definitely, it's costing us about $1,300 more per year for the lower limit testing.
It is, okay.
So I'm not sure what the lab has to do differently to get more sensitivity in their tests. But that...
But I mean, based on this, it sounds like they were only using the more expensive tests for the ones they suspected might be.
That's what it seems like, so.
And the other things, what else do they test for? I know we're focusing on the 1,4-dioxane.
It's a big long list.
There's a whole long list, and
Yeah.
everything else has been within drinking water levels, or within adequate levels.
Yeah, as far as I know, everything, like we've had other things that are below the reportable limits, like vinyl chloride, and I've seen that in there. So there are other,
Things that they're looking for.
there are other chemicals that do exist out there. But this just all came up because DEP wanted to correct us and make sure we were testing everything at this drinking water limit level. So we've had 1,4-dioxane has been detected before, like as early as
Right.
until like 2008
Right,
or 2007. So it's been there for a while. We're just, the goal is to get a long history of
Mhm.
results. You can kind of tell what's happening, but this sort of interrupted that process with them changing reportable limits and wells being damaged. It's kind of broken the chain for us to keep have a good, nice, good long timeline like that.
yeah, I wonder if DEP has everything succinctly kind of in a table or whatever, it's worth chatting with them.
Yeah, I will definitely do a request with them for that. So let's move on to question 2. For the current erosion problem areas, was the landfill cap damaged in these areas? So I got an answer for this at the contractor meeting, the bid meeting on Thursday, and there doesn't seem to be any damage to the cap. They actually have what we call a sacrificial layer of textile above the cap textile. So we are going to be, CEC is going to be on site and making sure that if there is any damage or any tears to the current cap, that they are prepared properly. And it most likely will happen with driving heavy equipment and digging. There's probably going to be some risks, but we just need to make sure they get fixed. Question number 3 is, what is the depth of the monitoring wells MW7, MW13D, MW14D, and MW96D, where the 1,4-dioxane exceedance were detected? I'm actually still waiting on the boring logs from CEC so that I can have those numbers. So that kind of goes into question 4. I did get the boring logs. The question is, what is the depth of the damaged monitoring wells, MW96R and then MW96S? So 96R is 32.5 feet deep, and then 96S is 12 feet deep. So question 5 was, why is 1,4-dioxane not monitored in the 3 sludge landfill monitoring wells at the same level as the now closed municipal solid waste landfill? So I actually don't know. That would have to be a question for DEP. I would just be guessing that leachate water gets tested under certain parameters, groundwater gets tested, groundwater and surface water gets tested on different parameters, and it has something to do with the difference between the two as far as what testing is required. So I'm definitely curious as well, and I'm going to make sure I find out what the difference is between the requirements for solid waste versus a sludge landfill testing. And that kind of applies also to question 6. Must the sludge landfill now be monitored for 1,4-dioxane at the drinking water level? I think it can. That would be something to bring up to the DPW and Dane as far as what they could do for testing on the sludge landfill.
So the sludge landfill is only solid waste, I mean, like,
It's only
from the water
sewage,
treat?
yeah, treated
So
waste.
would that not have the 1,4-dioxane in it? Is that why they don't, I mean, have they ever?
I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if it's coming from, if leachates come from the solid waste landfill, and the solid waste landfill has 1,4-dioxane in it, and that leachate goes to the wastewater treatment plant, through the leachate system.
Right,
You know,
which
then
we
it
don't
could-
know if it
Right,
does or
then
not.
it could be coming back to the sludge landfill. Plus I think the products that 1,4-dioxane are in, household products.
It's a lot of household cleaners and things like that, that are gonna go down into the sewage.
Yeah, so I think it's likely, it's possible. It's at least possible.
Yeah.
It's, right, I just, because they've never checked or they,
Well,
for it, or,
I'm still learning as I go too,
Okay.
but it looks like if I look at the leachate reports, those are different than this environmental monitoring report. So I don't actually think leachate gets tested under the same standards as groundwater and surface water either. So I don't believe there's any 1,4-dioxane testing with the leachate monitoring either.
yeah, it would be interesting to check with, maybe talking to DEP and
Yes.
asking them about it and
I am,
explaining, you know, what we're finding on the landfill side and, you know, because yeah, like you said, the 1,4-dioxane, it is gonna go into the wastewater, the sewer water, because that's where all your chemicals, if you're cleaning and stuff, pretty much are gonna go in.
yeah.
So it would be
um,
good to know, I mean, I think we need to know, but
So,
it's,
the Veolia released like the drinking water tests, and I think we had not detected for 1,4-dioxane on that. So I don't know if that kind of indicates that it gets eliminated in the treatment process or not. But
they don't check for it, or we didn't have any?
we didn't have any, they definitely test for it.
Oh, okay.
Like drinking water testing, yeah. Let's see, the last question, are there other surface water test locations in the vicinity to the south on the landfill site that should be tested for 1,4-dioxane? Because this would establish a path of exceedance, so we can kind of have a better idea of what's going on in that area. So that would be something we have to look and see if we can identify. I don't know what the criteria for surface water is. I mean, there's definitely ponds and things like that in the area that we could look into adding to the sampling.
I wonder if that's, because I know we were, I mean, I was wondering, and I think it came up from others too, questioning where that surface water, the leachate is flowing to. You know, there wasn't really any, I mean, it just kind of goes somewhere. We don't, I mean, is there a catch basin? Is there an overflow area that is absorbing it? When we went in, let me see if I my maps here. So when we went in from West Street and we started to go around and we stopped, right,
Going down and
right,
stopping.
and then
that's
it was
where
all, and then little decline, so, you know, where does it flow there, just go and flow?
Yeah, that's
Get
kind of where
collected
it's supposed to flow, and then.
But we don't have
reach
any
down.
monitoring sites over there.
I would have to look at the map, I'm
Yeah.
not exactly sure, so, but, as far as this question goes, I think I could ask CEC, as far as if we could add some more surface water, or identify some more surface water locations. That's something we can definitely look into, just see if it can help us, track how this is moving.
And that was one question.
And there are some, they do like geography, there's hydrogeography studies that were done that kind of show
Where
which direction
it's going.
groundwater does move. I can definitely look those up for you and see what I can find along those lines, so.
So right now, the 1,4-dioxane in exceedance levels has been just in this surface water, not in the groundwater.
It was actually in both.
It's in both,
It
okay.
was in his surface water in his pond, and then there was groundwater.
And those 3 monitoring wells, the one that's broken, that's collecting water flow or leachate from any area from the capped.
Yeah, it's just
It's
any
just-
groundwater in that spot, whatever is there, they're gonna detect, so.
And do we know, is there any change in the concentration at all, or we just measure I mean, I don't really understand, I'm trying to learn too, but the exceedance levels, is it just the numbers, or does that, if it's high or low or whatever, that determines the concentration level? If it's greater than if that changes and then we know that something's.
Yeah, so
Is that
I mean,
helping?
if it looks like it's getting more and more concentrated as we keep testing, that would definitely be an indicator that something is going on and needs to be looked at, so that's kind of what DEP is looking for as well.
Is it actually going up? I mean, you just want
I have not had a chance to.
One year to
even,
the next year, it went up from 5.5 to 9.2 and 15 to
That's
26.
2010.
That's 2010, so how do those numbers compare to now?
I have not gotten a chance to actually crunch that together, so that's kind of where I'm frustrated. I'm gonna get a hold of CDC, but.
Yeah, they should be able to have a list of all the numbers, at least from when they're doing it, from 2017. I mean, certainly, I don't know if this company is still working. They should have a list of them too.
Yeah,
They're only up to 2012, right?
somewhere in there, yeah.
And then who did it from 12 to 17?
CDC did it?
I think CDC took over after Brown and Caldwell, but I can't find the physical copies of anything between
Does this
2012 and
information
2015.
get reported to the state?
Yes.
That's what I was asking, if he has,
Some database somewhere.
he's gonna check.
I don't have the local database.
I've
It
just
must be
been-
whatever we have.
I've been trying to wrangle a whole landfill file into something easier to.
Yeah, because DEP should have
To
something
research,
too.
so.
Yeah.
I know, let me see what other questions I had. Yeah, so we don't really know where the surface water could be from anywhere. And then I'm thinking back to when I know our jurisdiction is the landfill, and the sludge landfill is DPW's jurisdiction.
Yeah.
But I know that when we were looking at the areas that were washed out and there was all that silt and stuff was, I mean, there was nothing there with any barriers. That looks like it had been, just destroyed over time. I don't know, I mean, that jurisdiction would be on the sludge landfill, DPW, or is there anything we can do about that, or is that conservation, or?
Well, I think conservation is the one who, he's out there working for DEP, sort of, he's the eyes.
Mhm.
So he did actually write an enforcement order
Right.
on
Yeah.
the DPW
Okay.
to fix those blowouts there.
Okay.
So conservation has to do with anything when it becomes within a wetland or close to a wetland.
Okay,
or
good.
any kind
So
of
that's
water
what
resource.
That's what the meeting about is later on tonight.
Yes, so they meet same days as us, just
Right.
at 6:30, I think.
So they can get that area or put an enforcement cleaning that up and
Yeah.
fixing it.
So can I ask a question that again, I'm learning as we
Yeah, I
go,
know, I
so-
think we all are.
But if we look, we've identified these two wells that are high, even way back when, is it possible to know where that's draining from and then
Yeah.
dig it up and get it out? Or like if there's some waste in there that is leaching out this, isn't that our goal of this whole project?
But the whole, if you remember when we walked around there, I mean, all that
It's all a big
leaching
lump that
is coming down and going and flowing, and that's the thing, we don't really know
there's no way to
where the actual
sample
source is.
inside that
It's
mound.
groundwater that's coming from all around it anywhere. But it would be interesting,
Well, the clean water comes down and goes on the runoff, right, so that.
it should, but that's where we have all those erosion
Right, they have to
areas.
be redone, to even know if they're serving that job
Right.
I
well.
think if it did come to like something else, I don't know if they, I think it's all about containment, so they wouldn't wanna go like into the landfill and remove something
Right.
that could disturb
Right.
more stuff, but.
And it is
might be-
mostly lined and capped, right?
Yes, as far as I know,
Right.
so I think what they're really wanting is just containment.
Contain it
So
in
that's
there.
why
So the
goal
two,
number one is
the
to
two
fix all
wells
the
that
erosion.
have it, is there a way to get to those and filter it, or what else do they do to get rid of it, to contain it?
I actually don't
Okay.
really know.
So because we're not, it's not being contained right now if it's been tested in the pond. So, and that's, your pond is way in the back of
1,200 feet away.
the sludge landfill.
So
And,
it's-
yeah, so it's flowing somewhere. I mean, I don't know if that area from where it was coming from, where the silt was all there, if that's, would help at all. Because then you have all those wetlands in there. And then your land is on the opposite side. We don't check the wetlands though, right? We just check his pond?
Correct, yeah. I don't know how the sampling sites got determined, but.
It would be interesting to see if it's
We
in,
can definitely look into adding more sites.
I'm just wondering about that. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but the pond that's on your land is beyond those wetlands that we saw. The wells, the monitoring wells are right here, and we had the trash,
Where all that silt was.
right,
It
it
just,
just was
beyond
on
that is the pond.
These are the two landfills.
Right,
The wetlands are here.
right,
The pond,
And
the
that's where-
SW4 is right here.
okay.
And, my concern is the streams coming out of this go here.
Right.
This is not tested at all. All right?
So, yeah, I'm just
So-
wondering if we could talk to CEC and see, at least a one-time sample and see if there is anything now. And, even if it's not gonna be the actual monitoring wells, but at least to find out currently and have a baseline of, does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm,
Hmm.
I think they were not done.
Yeah.
It's testing.
And surface water, you don't need to drill a well, you just.
right, it's
Yeah,
just
go
doing
scoop it out.
into the wetlands and, like you said, that other pond. It would be, I think, beneficial to talk to CEC to find that out.
These are like forever chemicals that are not
Right,
broken down in nature, but is there a way to filter it out of, say, your pond?
I don't know. See, this is where my initial memo or email to Mike, I suggested that the board needs a licensed site professional to provide you with a lot of this input. Somebody that'll work for you, that will help evaluate the situation and assist Micah as well.
what?
With all the right answers.
CEC
What can be cleaned up, what can't?
Right.
How do you contain it? How do you contain a situation like this? I mean, I think first you need more data. You need more tests. You need more tests so you can develop a pattern And that's what I think what an LSP would do when they look at a site. They look at sites for people who want to buy things to develop them. And you go in and look at a site like this, you want to figure out, where is it testing? The initial pictures that Mike had put together, or somebody did, show a whole line of test wells. And they're kind of in between the solid waste landfill and the solar farm and the sludge landfill. So you got these wells testing positive, and I think you had mentioned the increased levels. And then you got this thing way outside to the south, SW4, which is right on the other end of wetlands, where this stuff moves.
Right.
According to the DEP information. So I think doing more testing down in here will help establish a bigger pattern. But I do think the board would benefit, it's up to you, but it would benefit from consulting with a licensed site professional that could give you quick answers, some better answers to these things from an expert site evaluation.
So what is CEC? Is that what, do they monitor, would they have that knowledge?
I don't know, they haven't really provided that, so
Yeah.
that would be something to look into. Sure.
Right, who contracts with CEC? Does that?
That comes to me in the health department, so.
So would it be beneficial? Are they at a point, are they someone that we could have come visit and share with us more information, or are they just doing the monitoring and not really doing a site evaluation, or?
I think they monitor, they also have a system in place to deal with abnormal results.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
All right.
They have people who.
Yeah, because it would be, I don't know how you feel, but I would have them come and meet with us. Would be good.
Sure.
So if CEC doesn't do it, then we could look into any private contractors that do that. But I think we should start with looking at CEC and see if they.
Well, is that part of the service they're providing, or, how much?
So, yeah, the service they're providing, what we're paying for is really just the monitoring and then maintenance of the flares. So they go out and do all the tests and then collect all the data, put it into the reports.
I agree with you. They must have somebody there that knows what it all means.
Information.
And to look at the whole
That's
site
great.
rather than just doing the numbers. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
It's beyond us,
So, yeah, and then everything is extra beyond that. So if they
Right.
came to do a meeting.
I guess, yeah, I'm sure they would charge you
$200
Yeah.
for that.
If
That comes out of
the budget,
Yes.
whatever.
Yeah.
you can do with that.
Do we have to make a motion for when we spend the money? Or we want to just get?
Well, that's
it
under your
first?
budget.
Yeah,
Under
I
the
think so.
budget, if you have it, I guess to.
Yeah, I'll see how much it would be and kind of just let them know that's what we want to do and make a decision.
Like it has authority to do
Yeah,
that, but that's part
Okay,
of.
so does
Right.
it need board approval?
No.
Okay.
If you need to, you're the one who has the budget and has it approved and all that.
I think we're pretty unanimously concerned and want.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's not like there's
So,
anyone here saying,
yeah.
oh, we shouldn't spend this money or work on this. I think we all feel we want to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just had one other question too about the current pump station. So is that under Board of Health, the pump station?
No.
No,
that is
okay.
DPW.
Okay,
So,
all right.
we do have a connection to it, so there is leachate from the landfill that goes
Okay.
to the pump station, but it's DPW's pump station.
Okay. And you were saying something about the DEP letter. There was a DEP letter, which that was on the sludge landfill, not,
Right, yeah, there's a whole separate DEP thing where somebody had sent in a complaint about that outfall pipe too, having, sedimentation, siltation from, looked like a pipe that feeds that area.
The one we were talking about, the area we were talking about?
Right,
Right.
Outfall Pipe 2, that one we visited
Right.
at the site visit. And so what I found was somebody in DEP Wetlands, Judy Schmidt, wrote a 2-page letter basically following up on that complaint. And that I believe the Concom was addressing tonight, because she basically said you should go through the Concom to correct this problem. Siltation
which is
barriers
what-
are damaged.
Right.
Now, I don't know if that has anything to do with the dioxane problem or not,
No, that's,
because we just don't know. But that's why we need more information about testing. I mean, if the sludge landfill has test wells, it's got 3 of them.
mhm.
We were to get a dioxane test out of that at the appropriate level, you'd at least know if the test wells around the sludge landfill are testing positive for that. And they're clearly not testing for 1,4-dioxane right now, it appears.
Yeah.
They're not doing it. But those are like surface water places, those are wells already drilled. You just gotta run a test. So.
But that's DPW.
Right.
That's
Right.
not, yeah.
But
Like
that's,
Department of Public Works.
We request that they do it. When we-
I don't actually know, I mean, I can ask, but I think without that, I don't know if we can order them to do it.
no, I mean, I think what, with conservation, with, where he is doing the enforcement for the silt well, that's a start anyway, to fix that erosion. That looks like that's been there for a while, but, okay. Any other questions or comments from the on-site landfill meeting at this point? Are we all good with everything?
Yeah, I just think that question number 1 needs some more, which you've already said, but I think question number 1 needs some more work. When should we have known? And it sounds like requests were made to change the test levels. But Mr. Goop, can't pronounce his name, the guy from DEP, Giugiali, in January clearly said, testing at the wrong level. And I don't think he specified specific wells.
No,
He didn't, did he?
I
No,
don't think
so,
so.
So that means every well out there ought to have that level. So how did things get changed down over a certain middle period after 2010 when we don't even have the data now? That's atrocious.
so, I mean, I think checking with DEP and checking with CEC and checking, even if we have to go back to, is it Brown
Brown and Caldwell.
and Caldwell, they have to have reports somewhere.
So I don't understand, is this policy carried forward, the Brown and Caldwell policy, as far as or like what's been going on in the time period between that report and the present, as far as like what level we're.
They went to, in 2017, CEC, that's what we're trying to pull together, but in 2017, CEC took over. And then in, what was the date of year of the letter from the DEP when they said the levels were being used were wrong?
It was January this year.
January this year, right.
Yeah.
But yet, we don't really know which testing sites he was referring to. And we don't really know if that's just from CBC was testing at the inadequate levels, or that was being done all along from Brown and Caldwell, because the levels changed.
So we don't know if those two particular wells have been tested at the proper level since that time, or.
Right, I think that's,
Well, we know one has not been
Right.
sampled at all or anything,
Right.
there's damage.
and it
right,
hadn't
yeah.
been fixed
And
yet.
then I don't know why, what, like the other well,
And that's what we,
what changed.
Mike has been digging through everything to try to get a timeline together and to be able to really evaluate and assess what levels, how, so we know if there's been a change and at what change, that's the concentration change, but we don't really have adequate data that, of all the testing wells somewhere, so that's one of the things that we have to obtain, because that does make a difference. And maybe DEP has it all recorded somewhere in a nice little file, because we don't have it.
Well, I'm gonna keep digging away, so we'll, once I get it all, kind of put it together in a better summary and have it kind of go sequentially, like what the limits were, what the results were, and kind of just put it in a timeline from there, so.
But going forward, as of now.
Right,
As of now,
It's-
we're
they're
testing
being
everything at the low level.
Right.
Right.
Going up.
I mean, unfortunately, you know, can't speak for past, but I know going forward with this, we have to figure this out.
Yeah, so and we're spending a lot of energy trying to figure out when it changed and why was this tested, not tested, but the bottom line is we have some abnormal
Right.
results. So we
Right, and that's what we've been going on
those
since
as soon as possible.
we figured that when we were notified, you know, and picked up on it, and that's, I think that's what we're trying to do, is to go forward and,
But it sounded like we need DPW to do sludge testing of those wells. We need to ask the CEC if they have data from 2012 to the present. And then we need to ask CEC if they can do an expert opinion on how we can chain and deal with those abnormal toxic levels.
so.
Yep.
Okay, next item on your update, mattress recycling.
So this is just for mattresses that are too contaminated or too, it's supposed to be anything that has bugs or bodily fluids or molds. And if it can't be recycled, we need to find an alternative as far as disposing of those. So right now I'm working on a couple of alternatives. One would be Top Stuff in Pittsburgh. They have basically a machine that will shred mattresses so that they can take out all the parts. So they can accept stuff that's in a little worse condition. And then they would also charge us, if it's completely unrecyclable, it would be $55 per mattress to be Top Stuff. With E.L. Harvey, it's $150 per mattress if it's too contaminated to recycle. And then I'm also looking into the option to see if there's any way to transport those to Wheelabrator and just have them incinerated and see what kind of cost that would be. Otherwise, it's really, I think, when I talked to Stan, he said it's maybe 3 or 4 mattresses a month that are like that. And almost all mattresses we get are in recyclable condition. So
And
it's just-
they can just, we take the mattresses to recycle.
You
It's
take
just
those, they
the,
go to raw material recovery after that, and they get recycled. So
it's just the contaminated ones.
basically, it's been sitting in like a ditch for months, years, like mattresses like that, they cannot recycle. So we're just looking at alternatives to paying $150 a piece to go through Hardy for that. Next, just with food inspections, we had no foodborne illness complaints since the last meeting. We just had 2 general complaints, 10 routine inspections and 1 re-inspection. For housing and nuisance, we only had 9 new cases, 14 cases, and currently have 23 open cases. We got a kind of a rush of no heat calls when that first couple nights when it got down into the 30s. So we're expecting a little bit more in the near future. And we had 2 emergency responses both were for backed up sewer pipes. And then we're also slowly moving forward with getting 1 property into becoming like a receivership through the AGO's office to try and get that back into the housing market. And then my last update is that for next year, I need to find a new contractor to mow nuisance properties if we have to mow them. I need to find find somebody new for next year.
Okay. And prevention,
Oh, prevention, let's see, we had I don't actually have too many updates, so Veronica's been kind of working with the schools now.
I know we did National Night Out, we did the Domestic Violence Awareness Month is October. Liver Awareness Month is October. There's, we did a cable interview, Dr. Mom, Cal and I, which is on the local cable show. Trying to think what else. And I know she's involved in the schools.
She is, yeah,
A lot.
we didn't get an update this
Right.
time, so that is all I have for today.
Okay. Anything else? Do you have any other comments or questions about anything? I know
No, again, I thank you for the continued work on the landfill dioxane issue, extremely important. I can tell you that I'm also on the board of directors for North County Land Trust. Their property is downstream from my pond, SW4. They're concerned about getting their pond tested. And then right after that pond is close to another small stream, right to the Otter River, a few hundred feet away, so.
I mean, again, I think it's, I grew up in Gardner, and I think back as a child, I mean, you saw all the haystacks, you smelled the air, and, all the factories were, back then we didn't know, and people were dumping everything everywhere. Don't know what was dumped in any of the lands, and certainly not the landfill. I mean, everything was, dumped in there. As kids, we ran around and played in it, I mean, we just, unfortunately, but, I also believe strongly in, we can't change what we didn't know about, but we can go forward. And I think in everything, I feel strongly, I know, that's how we learn, so, I mean, I worry about this stuff, like, and I've said before, like, I had no idea some of these forever chemicals, where they are at, we didn't know about the fire. I mean, look at in the fire departments, the flammable pajamas and stuff, or non-flammable pajamas, have a lot of chemicals in them. And things like that, we always, with our soaps, our detergents, and, we always took for granted and we never checked on. And I know, going forward, we definitely do the best.
The good thing is we have more information.
Right.
But I think that Dr. Parker's point, the real bottom line is, what's the corrective action? We try to figure things out. What's the pattern of contamination? We've got something from the well so far, but what's the further pattern?
Right.
And then how do you move to a step where you do something?
Right.
One of the questions I would, just quick question is the mayor been briefed on this problem? He has been briefed. Okay, good, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, set the next meeting.
I also just want to thank you, Mr. Russo, for taking us around the landfill and all
Yeah.
wonderful. We wouldn't know as much about this problem if it wasn't for all the work you put into this, and I really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I appreciate working together with things and not, against each other, because, there's a process. I mean, we're all are, how municipalities are run, and, with the boards and the chain of command and stuff, and, I personally very valuable, and honored to be on this board, and working with the people that we work with, and, I think we have a pretty strong idea of processing things, and not gonna just ignore, we do what we can, with those, so. Okay, the next meeting, that brings us into November. When is 25th is not good for me.
18th isn't great for me.
Okay. This is where, 11th is Veterans Day. Might need to move into December 2nd.
2nd is not
Yeah,
too good for me.
okay.
Could do the 9th. It's not too far out.
No, I can do that. I know the holidays are gonna throw things off, but even if we meet, well, if we did the 9th, and then we could go like the 1st of January, that first week, that wouldn't throw us off.
Yeah, we can pass the holidays without having all this
Yeah.
end of the month stuff, which is
Yeah.
really challenging for
So-
the holidays, so.
We could do, and then we could maybe look at January 6th for the, to get us through, so we're not going on too long a time.
December 9th and January 6th. Maybe, I mean, that's kind of a long ways to put things on hold.
I know, I don't
Want
wanna
to do like an email update or something, is that okay? Like as you find things out?
Oh, yeah.
And you can just.
Yeah, you can update us, and that's not violating anything.
It'll all be in email, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. All right, so next meeting would be December 9th. Okay, so, motion to adjourn,
So moved.
second, and all in favor? Aye. Meeting is adjourned at 5:43. Yeah, if you email us, then if something changes or